It is a beautiful day here on this Memorial Day weekend, and our garden is just taking off. So I wanted to take you guys on a quick tour so you can see what we're growing, how it's doing, and what our next steps are. Welcome to our homestead. We're so glad you're here. We live about half a mile outside the city limits in Middle Georgia, and we're choosing to do things a little bit differently with our family. My name's Rhiannon, and this is my wonderful husband, Tracy. We're working around our house doing things like gardening, canning, and homeschooling our two sons, Logan and Kevin. We're also raising chickens, growing our own food, preserving it, and doing all the things that we can to be independent. So this bed is in transition right now. As you can see, my sunflowers, as they're blooming, I have been picking the heads after they die. You can see this one here is on his way out. So once all these petals fall off, I will go ahead and cut this whole thing down, and then I will cut the head off here and bring it out to dry. You can see all of these under those tiny little buds. Those are all seeds, and we do harvest the seeds. Sometimes I will roast them for our family, or other times I will just give them to the chickens, and I always make sure to save some for planting. But this year I didn't really have to because they came up on their own. Once these sunflowers are gone, this bed is right next to our house. It gets full sun all day, lots of heat. I will plant okra seeds in here because year after year, they love this spot. And then the same thing will happen here. I am finishing up these sunflowers. These are taking a little bit longer to bloom, but they're so pretty once they do. You can see here, my dill is almost as tall as me. And then under here we had some extra cabbages that I didn't have room for. They're looking amazing. That one's actually forming a cabbage in the middle. And then I have some lettuce here. That's going to start working its way out as the days get hotter, but we have had just some amazingly cool spring days, and it's still really happy, so I am just leaving it. So out here in the main garden is where the action really is. Everything at this point is sprouting and growing, as our spring crops are still doing well, but starting to peter out. We are working our way into some warmer days, but like this morning, it was in the high 50s. And so now we're just sort of getting into the low 70s this afternoon. So it's getting our summer crop a nice chance to get established, but not have to go too quickly or having to worry about the heat too much. And our spring crop is having an awesome opportunity to finish itself out instead of just bolting or dying off because we've gotten so much heat. We are in Middle Georgia, and so for us usually it's like winter, 1 week of spring, and then summer. And this year we've had just a really lovely long spring, and so it has just been really wonderful for our garden, giving us a good foundation, and I'm excited to show you guys what's out here. So this box here we actually had to use as an emergency chicken coop whenever we had our last round of meat birds. The company sent us too many, and while that was a great blessing, we sort of had to scramble to figure out where to put them. So you can see, however, that all of the plants are loving the fact that they have so much chicken manure left in here. So in the back I have some extra tomatoes that I needed a place for. They have taken off. It's about time for me to trim those. Here I have bush beans. My favorite is the Blue Lake bush bean. I just think the greatest yield, and I can do 3 or 4 rounds during the summer because they put on beans quickly and then they're done. And so then I have the opportunity to pull them up, get another round in, and like I said, I can get 3 or 4 rounds in here. And then down along here, I have some climbing cucumbers. These will go up the side of the fence and give me, these are all pickling cucumbers. That's all I did this year was pickling cucumbers. Moving over to this box, you can see I have still my cabbage. It has still been really cool, but you can see here in the middle, they're starting to put on the cabbage heads. And some of these are really starting to get kind of heavy and dense. So I'm really excited. I will have to show you guys when we get to pick these. And here on the side, I have more pickling cucumbers. These are vining again, so they will just climb up this fence. I've got some tomatoes I had to stick in the corners here. And then you can see that some of my cucumbers have already started to climb. I'm so excited. So the ones that are along the fence are vining. The ones in the center here are bush cucumbers, so I didn't have to give them any support. And then once we pull this box, once the cucumbers are done and the cabbages are done, this box will also get planted in green beans because our family just really loves green beans.
When you move, there's a freedom from your hips up to your eyes. Patron saint.
Moving over to our next few boxes here, again, I have some flowers all along the edge, and then around the edge of these cinder blocks, I have strawberries, and all of these strawberries were runners. They were babies that came off my original 3 strawberry plants. They are doing awesome. They love these cinder block boxes. And that also gives me a great chance to have the strawberries hang instead of sitting in the dirt. So this is a method I would really recommend if you want to try to grow strawberries. The cinder blocks honestly have been one of my favorite ways to do it. And then here in the center, I still have potatoes. They should be getting about ready to pick or dig up, I guess. I've had to add some dirt here to mound over them because all of the rain that we have had has just beat it down, and you don't want your potatoes sticking up over the dirt. So I've just had to add some bagged soil or some compost here and there just to make sure everything stays covered. And then across the back here, my cucumbers are starting to get just long enough that I can put on this trellis. They will eventually go all the way to the top of the trellis. They really seem to enjoy the cinder blocks as well, and I just plant them directly in the cinder block squares so that anything I want to plant in the middle of the bed here doesn't get in the way.
From your hips up to your eyes, patron saint of the season. Yeah, you were built for mid-July. You got the glow of the sunset. You got the rush of the ocean waves.
Over here, more cucumbers. This entire box is sunflowers and cucumbers. And I know you guys are thinking, wow, you people are crazy. Like, how many cucumbers can you plant? I will tell you there is more. But for us, the season for cucumbers, in my opinion, is very short. We only get a small amount of time before those little worms come that bore into your cucumbers and make them disgusting. And so what I have learned over the year is because we have such a short season with them, I plant all of them at one time. I overplant. We have more cucumbers than we know what to do with. We make absolutely 500 gallons of refrigerator pickles because I'm not going to get them anymore later in the year. So these in the middle are all bush cucumbers. I do have a trellis here, and then we added this trellis here for the other cucumbers. This will most likely get moved after this season is done because I'll need it for more tomatoes. But for right now, anything that has a trellis is being utilized for cucumbers. Behind me here, I have 2 more boxes. This one, again, cucumbers, and I have some sweet potato starts that are in there, and as soon as they are tall enough to vine, they will use these trellises. All the cucumbers that I planted in this box are bush cucumbers, so they will not need a trellis. They will just stay low, and I can just utilize that middle space where the sweet potatoes aren't growing. And then this box behind me here, you can see I have the rest of my kale. This is what survived after our horrible freeze this year. I have one sad and lonely asparagus. And then everything back here, this is all yellow squash. Half of my family loves yellow squash. The other half of my family doesn't really prefer it. But I go ahead and grow it because I do know that my husband and my oldest son Logan, they will eat it. I can freeze it. I can do boiled squash for them. Kevin and I will snack on it a little bit with some ranch. It's not our favorite, but I always make sure to grow some so that everyone kind of gets what they want. All right, moving back through our in-ground garden, and this is something that we started adding the last couple years. And so we have finishing garlic here. This is music garlic. It is a hardneck variety, I believe. I tried it for the first time this year and I didn't kill it, so I know that's good. I'm not sure exactly how big these bulbs are. The other ones I planted, I pulled the other day, and they were a lot smaller than I'd hoped. But I'm hoping that these ones, because they were in a better spot, are going to be big and just huge and lovely. So these were really easy, other than covering the little green shoots when it frosted. I didn't do anything. I planted these in the fall. They have been here all winter, and so I will pull them. You can see the bottom leaves are starting to die off, and from what I've read, that's when they're getting ready for me to pull. This is zucchini, again, mixed with some sunflowers. You're going to see sunflowers everywhere. We had a ton of them come up from our compost, and I just kept them because they're awesome for the birds and the bees. And here we have some Roma tomatoes. These are a variety that I have not grown before, and I'll be honest with you, I don't love them. I did have some trouble with my soil, my potting soil this year. And so they haven't done very well. These ones haven't. So I'm not sure if it's just the variety, or if it was just kind of carryover from my potting soil, but these are looking a little sad, but I'm letting them hang in there. And then these are my green beans. We planted these earlier. Normally I don't put green beans and tomatoes together. However, early in the season, I do have luck with it because they both need a lot of water when they are younger plants. Beans just take a lot of water naturally. As the tomatoes get more established and they start to get fruit on them, too much watering will cause blossom end rot. It will cause issues with your fruit. So after these beans all give me their fruit for the year, I will leave them alone. I will pull them, and I will not replant beans here later in the year because I don't want to affect my fruit. Basically, the majority of our garden back here is tomatoes and green beans. We use a lot of tomatoes. We eat tomatoes. We eat them in salad. We eat them by themselves. We love tomato sandwiches. We eat spaghetti and pizza quite a bit because it's an easy meal for me to make, so I can. Most of what we grow on these trellises. So you're going to see tomatoes because that's what we eat. And quite frankly, I only grow what we eat. So back here, I do have some yellow squash, and I'm so excited. It is just doing amazing. I'm so thrilled with how these plants are doing. Squash for me is generally kind of a hit or miss along with zucchini. Some years I do awesome with it, and then other years it just sucks. And this is a banner year. Yes, we need to weed. Weeding is always an issue for us. But this year it is just doing so well, and I have baby squashes on almost every single plant, so I'm just so excited about that. Back here is the latest expansion to our garden. We have added some blueberry trees, bushes back here. They are transplants from my mother-in-law's bushes, so we are hoping they live. We're trying it out. And then here in these barrels, I have calendula, and I started some raspberries. I had a sweet friend give me some small raspberry starts off of her raspberry bushes, so they are doing really well. Raspberries spread though, so in order to keep them kind of contained and not everywhere, we are keeping them in these were 55-gallon drums, basically plastic barrels that we cut down. And then back here we got our pumpkins in. We have our Jardale pumpkins. I think that's how you say it. They're the beautiful blue ones. My youngest son wanted some jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, so we have those have all come up. And then back here I have some peas, purple whole peas, I believe they are. So, and those will trellis and they will just cover this. They get a little obnoxious, so that's why I put them out here in the back where they just can't get everywhere. We made the mistake one year of planting them in one of our covered boxes, and it was horrendous. So if you grow vining peas, I just highly recommend giving them lots of space where you don't care like what they do. These are more pumpkins. These are all going to be fairy tale pumpkins, I think. And these are taking a little longer to come up, but both the Jardale and the fairy tale pumpkins are gorgeous, but also they are cooking pumpkins. They're excellent for pies and cakes and stuff like that. And so at this point, I pretty much don't grow things that you can't really eat, with the exception of flowers. So that is what these are. All right, coming from the back, I have some more tomatoes. These are the Roma type tomatoes. Another bed of squash, and then these tomatoes here and these tomatoes here, these are bush tomatoes. These are going to be larger slicing tomatoes. So they are not vining tomatoes, which is why I trellis them a little differently. And you can see we're already starting to get some really beautiful tomatoes. And then the rest of these are all Roma style tomatoes. This variety is called an Amish paste tomato. I have never grown it before, but I am already so impressed with these plants and how well they took off. I even had to plant them early because they had just outgrown every pot that I had. So they are just doing really well overall. Now, unfortunately, we have had a lot of rain, and so with that, of course, tomatoes get mad, they get diseased. So here I'm dealing with a fungus. I don't remember the name, I've looked it up. And so these tomato plants may not last throughout the whole season, but I do have replacements. And so all I'm doing is going through every few days, I'm trimming off anything that looks diseased, and I'm throwing it away. Do not compost anything on tomatoes that looks like this, because the fungal spores, which is what this is, will get in your compost and then you will definitely never get rid of it. So I'm just sort of dealing with it right now. It's not ideal, but so far it has not affected the fruit. So I've been really grateful for that. Like I said, I've just been trimming it. Make sure you clean your scissors or your trimmers. I use like alcohol wipes in between so that I don't pass it on to any plants I have that are healthy. But you can see here, like the fruit is looking just beautiful. So I'm hoping I can at least get a small harvest out of these before they just crap out on me completely. So then what I'll do after these plants die is I will actually go ahead and pull them up. Most of the time I try to practice a regenerative style of gardening, and that is where I just cut plants down. I leave the root systems intact in the ground to allow them to decompose and add to my soil. However, when you're dealing with something like disease, and unfortunately in Georgia, we just deal with it. Our humidity levels are not super friendly for tomatoes. Typically, I don't have to deal with this type of issues until later in the summer, closer to July or August. But this year, we've just had a huge amount of rain that we're just not used to in the spring. So I'm dealing with it early, and that's okay. But with diseased plants, you never really want to leave anything left, or you never want to leave anything behind that could keep that disease dormant in the soil. So one thing that I'm going to do once these guys are done, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut them down. I'm either going to burn them, or I'm going to take them out into the woods, far away from my garden, where I don't have to worry about anything traveling back into my garden area. I'm also going to wipe down all of my trellises with a little bit of bleach water. I shy away from bleach quite a bit because it's not a great thing. But at the end of the day, I also have to weigh what is more important, food for my family or a little bit of bleach. So I'm going to just do some diluted bleach water. I'm going to make sure I clean all of the trellises where the diseased plants were before I put anything new over there, because I want to make sure that I'm giving my plants the best option possible to grow as healthy as possible. So if you're dealing with this, whether it's early on or it's later in the year, sometimes we just have to sort of suck it up and go with it, but it is a manageable problem. And it's not the worst thing in the world. Just make sure that you're cleaning all of your tools thoroughly, and that you are just doing all the things you can to just minimize the disease, or at least keep it localized to, a few branches, or not spread throughout your whole crop.
Your skin soft as ice cream, yeah, you melt under my touch. And with your kiss strong as lightning, you got me falling right back in love. You got the glow of the sunset, you got the rush of the ocean wave.
This is a new section to our garden this year, and I'm so excited to add it in. We decided this year we wanted to do a cut flower garden, and then I also wanted a place to keep all of my herbs. I usually have them just kind of scattered all helter-skelter around the yard and in the flower beds, and I really wanted just a centralized location. So along the edge here I have feverfew, which is a great medicinal herb. This is a zinnia that has come up, and I am just in love with the flowers, the color, the style. It is definitely one of my favorite flowers. Here I have some lemon thyme, and then over here I have some sage with a volunteer pumpkin that I'm just leaving. Here I have hyssop, which is another medicinal herb, and then I have chamomile. Here, I started this from seed this year, and it actually did okay. I only had 2 plants come up, but they are doing really well, so I'm super excited about that. And then more zinnias in between, a volunteer tomato plant. At my house, in my garden, all volunteers pretty much stay. Not always the pumpkins because they get a little obnoxious, but volunteer tomato plants usually are allowed to stay because they sometimes are like the best tomato plants that I get for the whole year. What actually was planted here, I have some red yarrow, which is another medicinal herb, and it is about to bloom here, so I'm very excited about that. And then my youngest son, Kevin, wanted to have his own flower garden. And so we went to a local greenhouse. We went to Collier's Greenhouse, which is down in Jackson. And so I highly recommend them. Their plants are top quality. Their staff is amazing. But he picked out some different flowers. And of course, we had to add Floyd the flamingo because flamingos are his favorite animal. So this is all planted with zinnias that you can see are starting to come up. I am so excited to have the rest of the seeds. I just added a few more seeds because I had a few that didn't sprout. But by the end of the summer, this is going to be gorgeous, and we will have flowers for sale. So I'm so excited. These are the rest of our tomatoes that I planted. And so we are just kind of waiting on a space for those. I'm hoping I can keep them alive until some of my other ones peter out, but if not, and if you are local to me, then we are selling these for $1 a piece. And then we have some smaller ones that we're selling 2 for $1. So if you need some tomato plants, you are welcome to stop by and grab some. And then I wanted to show you over here, we are starting some okra seeds in our trays. And then I have some basil, I have some calendula that's ready. And then these are my sunflowers that I was explaining earlier about drying. So all I do is just cut the heads off and then leave these out to dry. And you can already see where the buds come off. Those are all the sunflower seeds. And so once they dry, you just kind of pop them out like an ice cube tray, and they are ready to plant or to eat or to feed to your chickens. And that's what we do with them. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. This is what we're growing in our garden right now. We are in zone 8B. So this is what is pretty common in our area and what we're growing for our family. Can't wait to see you guys in a few weeks when I show you how everything has progressed. Have a great day.
There's a freedom from your hips up to your eyes, patron saint of the season.